burial or cremation? That's a big question for a lot of people today. We already know that the Jews use burial as a proper burial for their deceased, and other religions do as well. It's really come into this last century or so that more and more people are being cremated. But is it scriptural? Is it something that pagans do? Well, I can tell you a little bit about the origins of being burned, and then we can talk about whether it's okay to do cremation today. In the Old Testament, God forbid for the children of Molech to be burned in the fire. Now, it's been questioned whether or not they really took the children and burned them in the fire and sacrificed them to Molech. However, there are some instances where it says that the children were caused to pass through the fire. They'd build a fire on one side and another fire on the other side, and they would tell the parents, the priest would, that the child had to go through that fire in order to live a long life. Well, it was hot, and the child would scream, and they'd make a lot of noise so the parents could hear screaming. They'd come through alive. Would they be burned? Yes, they'd be burned pretty bad, but they'd be assured of long life. And the parents were fearful that if they didn't do that, that the children would die suddenly. That's kind of where that came from. Did some of the people that sacrificed to Moloch actually kill their children in the fire? Yes. Okay, so God forbid that practice. He says never entered his mind for anybody to be sacrificed in Moloch. So you'll know, God is the only sacrifice we need. We don't need any other kind of sacrifice. You don't need to flagellate your body. You don't need to hang on a cross. You don't have to walk on your knees 10 miles to go worship Jesus. You don't have to do any of that. The sacrifice is Jesus. So then we come to a place where in the book of Genesis, I believe is in chapter 3, he said this. He said, "From dust were you created, and to dust shall you return." Well, that particular passage of Scripture, the word dust means ashes as well. So where we get the word ashes to ashes and dust to dust kind of comes from that, but nowhere in the Bible does it really say ashes to ashes and dust to dust. That's the closest it can be, only by definition. All right, so there was another instance in the Bible where King Saul was burned. After he was captured and killed, they cut off his head and his sons, and what happened to them was they were so disfigured that they took them and burned their bodies, but then they buried their bones. Well, as I appreciated in cremation, your flesh will burn up to ashes, but a lot of times the bones will remain and are even broken up as fragments as they're being burned, but sometimes they just last forever. Well, the point is, what do you do with all of this? I went to a house one time that I had sold, and the family moved out of state, and they left furniture, and I walked in the bedroom, and there was an urn. I went, oh man, what have I got to do with this? So I realized it was the father's urn, and he had been cremated and put in that urn, and the children didn't take it with them. Now, obviously, they didn't want to dispose of it or do anything to it. So my daughter, Tammy, was there, and I said, Tammy, what are we going to do with this? And she said, well, Dad, what did they like? And I said, well, go look at their yard. They love their flowers and plants. She says, okay, I got it. I said, okay. So we took the urn outside, and she took the ashes and spread them out over the flowers and the plants, and she said, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. May his spirit never rust. I went, oh, that's perfect. I love it. I said, all right, they'll be pleased with that. So where do you deposit the contents of ashes? I've seen them take the urn and get a burial plot and bury them. I've seen them put them beside their bed in their house somewhere, up on the mantle of their fireplace, take them outside and do like Tammy did, cast their ashes out in the sea somewhere. there's no set thing. They're ashes, and they're not going to hurt the atmosphere or the ground or create anything, because anything that was organic inside of it was burned up. So that's that story. So what is the purpose of cremation? Mostly today, it's price. So you can do a cremation a lot cheaper. You don't have to embalm them. Do it within 3 days. You don't have to embalm them. And they burn them, the ashes. They've got places where crematories where people do that and receive the ashes back as a memorial for their loved one. You can do either one. If you want to do a burial, a cremation. I did check out all the other religions. Some of them forbid cremation. It depends on which religion you belong to. Some of them don't have anything to say about it. And here's what I'm going to tell you about the scriptures. There's nothing in the scriptures that forbid cremation. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 13, though I give my body to be burned and yet have not love. Now, that's the only place in the New Testament that talks about your body being burned. It seems like a sacrifice, and it seems like maybe it's cremation, whatever it may be. It doesn't make any difference. It's not something that's forbid. It's something that people can do. So nowhere in the scriptures does it forbid cremation. It's not something that's relegated to pagans, and it's not something other than the Molech that we talked about earlier. And burial is still in for people that have the money to buy all of the caskets and equipment and stuff and vaults to put their loved ones in and have that kind of funeral. Sometimes people will have funerals with the body in a casket and then have them cremated. It's your preference. So you know you can go any way you want to go on this, and I'm going to give my last statement on it. A little bit of physics here. Did you know that matter can neither be created nor destroyed? So if your body is burned, you never lose the molecules. You never lose what's in you. So in the resurrection, whether you're burned, whether you're eaten by a big fish, or whether you are destroyed by a bomb or explosion or whatever, your body is going to be restored through the resurrection as a spiritual body. I don't know how that works, but I believe in the resurrection. So no matter what you do, as soon as you die, your spirit goes to be with the Lord. To be absent from the body is to be present with God. So that's my take on burial versus cremation. God bless you guys, and go in peace. Bye.